Right, well, July 14, 2022 brings with it a post on Discord that there is a new development blog about Tier 8. It's called Strive for Greatness. As the release of the Tier 8 ships draw closer, they wanted to share a few more details before all the changes are made for the Tier 8, and they're going to talk about the economy, temporary matchmaking situation. Holy cow, I wonder what that is. And information about what ships lead up to the new ones. And then there will be a small, comprehensive, frequently asked questions at the end. All right, the first thing is the economy changes, and I think they did kind of mention this before, but the service fee for the Tier 6 researchable ships is now reduced down to $91,125. Service fee for researchable Tier 7 ships is now down to $122,400, and these are silver credits. The service fee for the premium Tier 7 ships is now all the way down to 95,200 silver credits. So as you're going into a match, you will be charged those amounts of credits before the match. So during the match, if you don't do well enough to gain at least the service fee, you will be in the red, and you will have that amount deducted from your amount of silver credits that you have. And then the last item here is a credit bonus for Tier 7 premium ships, which is increased from 15% up to 55%. And yes, that was mentioned before, and I have noticed this with all of my Tier 7 premium ships. They do accumulate quite a lot of credits at the end of even mediocre matches, as it turns out. All right, so the next thing here is a temporary matchmaking changes, and due to the fact that the Tier 8 population will be initially very small, matchmaking will temporarily allow Tier 7, Tier 8, and Legendary ships to be matched in the same battle. Right, keep in mind that this is only for a limited time, and normal matchmaking will be reverted back to the +1, -1 principle soon after. Other tiers are unaffected, and the +1 or -1 principle is when you go into a match with a Tier 7 ship, or Tier 8 ship in this case. You may be matched with a Tier 7 or a Legendary ship also in the match. So the Tier 7 ships might be kind of at a disadvantage if they go up in a match against Legendary ships, but that's something that's been going on all along anyway. Now they're throwing Tier 8 into the mix. So the Vemar going up to Tier 7 soon is probably going to have a little bit of a problem, and I think that's exactly what they want. So, all right, so the ships, Tier 8 ships are listed right here. And for the Americans, will be the Battleship Maine, and it will follow the Iowa. The cruiser Buffalo follows the Baltimore, so it will not follow the Cleveland. And the destroyer is the Sumner, which follows the Fletcher. And I guess the Sumner, I've heard, is a mix between the Garing and the Fletcher. And the Garing was actually an improved Fletcher, I believe, anyway. So now on to the Japanese. Battleship Zumo, which will follow the Amagi. Cruiser Ibuki, which follows the Mogami. Destroyer Yugomo, which follows the Kagero. All right. And then now we have the Germans, and the battleship will be the Friedrich der Grosser, which follows the Bismarck. The cruiser Rune, which definitely was out there for a long time as a speculation that would be the Tier 8 ship, or a Tier 8 ship, and it will follow the Hipper. And then the destroyer Z46 will follow the Z23. So apparently the Z46 will be twice as good as the Z23. And the Z23 is pretty good. All right, now the Soviets. Battleship Sovietsky Soyuz, which will follow the Vlad. And then the cruiser Dmitry Dondosky, which follows the Shapiev. And then the destroyer Denley, which follows the Tashkent. All right. And they will start showing the stats for each of the ships soon with a series of videos, so keep your eyes peeled for that. All right, now we're on to the Tier 8 frequently asked questions. First question is, how expensive will Tier 8 tech tree ships be to research, to purchase, and to service? And the answer is you will need 300,000 XP from a freshly unlocked Tier 7 ship to unlock a Tier 8. And I think most everybody was expecting 300,000 XP. And then they go on to mention that the path to Tier 8 and the road to Tier 8 personal missions will be going on for the remainder of the current update. And what's even more lucrative, any elite XP you have on your Tier 7 ships will be used to boost them. So it's entirely possible that some of the ships will unlock for you automatically. And in the example I gave in one of my recent videos, and I will leave links to all of my Tier 8 videos down below here, my Bismarck had 750,000 elite XP. So the big question is, what happens to the rest of that XP once the Frederick Grosser is unlocked? And the answer is that any XP remaining after the unlock will then be applied back to the Bismarck. So I will end up with probably 500,000 elite XP or so after I unlock the Frederick. And then let me see here. Acquiring a Tier 8 ship will cost 25 million credits. So, okay, so a little bit more than the cost of a Tier 7 aircraft carrier. And I believe the reason why the Tier 7 aircraft carriers cost the 24 million silver credits is because you never had to buy the Tier 6 aircraft carrier, because there is no Tier 6 aircraft carrier. So that is why I believe the Tier 7 CVs are right around the same cost as a Tier 8 ship. When it comes to the service costs of the Tier 8 ships, it will be 160,000 credits, as we saw before, just like the Tier 7 a few updates ago. Okay, well, that's interesting. And then the Tier 8 premium ships will also have a 15% bonus applied to their credit earnings, the same as the Tier 7 before. So Tier 7 is now the moneymaker ship. That is very interesting. You still make a little bit, I guess, with Tier 8 because they're giving you a 15% bonus. But when you look at all the premium ships in your port, you'll see that all of them say that they are a moneymaker. So they have some kind of a bonus that offhand I don't know that I've ever seen what the credit bonus is for any of the lower tiers of ships, other than here we've been talking about the Tier 7 and Tier 8 ships. All right, so how will matchmaking work going forward? And for the release of the Tier 8, high tier matchmaking is going to be 3 tiers wide. That means that Tier 7 will be able to see Tier 8 and legendary tier ships initially. All right, well, here you learn something new every day. All right, so next one. Ooh, this is the big one. Same as the Veemer, any ship, premium or tech tree, will be moved up or down a tier due to their performance. So they're talking about the Veemer being moved up to Tier 7. I think they still haven't really said when that it will be, though. But okay, so they're addressing the Veemer going to Tier 7. And the answer is the Veemer situation is very peculiar in that they grossly underestimate the performance of the Veemer and got what they got. So yeah, I would say that's true. She should be just fine at Tier 7 fighting against Tier 6 and Tier 8 and only facing legendary for a short time. When it comes to other ships, we do not see any candidates for such a move, at least currently. I guess they really think that they really blew it on the Veemer. I'm happy with my purchase. I thought it was great that you could have a ship that could do that. Anyway, whatever, it's being moved. They're dealing with it. Next question is, how will Tier 8 ships be distributed besides the tech tree? Will they become a regular campaign tier? And you'll definitely see some Tier 8 ships in campaigns, and probably a good number of them. All right, so I guess they will be the main reward prize for campaigns going forward. I mean, some campaigns or updates do have premium ships that you can buy in the store during the campaign. So in some ways, I would think that that could be what this is referring to as well. But I think this really means that A Tier 8 ship will be the campaign reward, or the main reward for upcoming campaigns. And oh, here you go. Otherwise, expect the usual routes of global XP, perhaps the Bureau, the Forge, and even the auction. Oh, the auction should be very entertaining, especially when people spent a ridiculous amount of credits, or doubloons, I guess it was, on that Tier 3 battleship, which turned out to be not that great. This, we don't have to go into that too much more, but all right. Do you plan to rebalance legendary tier and Tier 7 ship performance? The primary goal of Tier 8 is to slide exactly in between Tier 7 and legendary tier, so we initially plan to work with the new ships while leaving the existing ones alone as a whole. Specific ships will certainly continue to receive tweaks here and there. All right, will future early access branches have a Tier 7 ship available in crates from now on? And they say probably. All right. Does this make the return of unavailable Tier 7 ships more likely? And those ships would be the Jean Bart, Lenin, Wichita, and Udachi. And I would expect at some point the Vemur will be in that list as well. Okay, anyway, the answer is, while there are some ships that we don't want to oversaturate the game with, think the Weimer, others that have gone but haven't been forgotten are likely to make a return. Does this mean that legendary aircraft carriers are on the horizon? Yes. I'm guessing that will be probably the Enterprise. And then the next question is, on the topic of more tiers, do we have any plans to introduce super ships? No. And the last question is, do we plan to add the full 10 tiers from the PC? And again, no. That would imply adding many lower tier ships that probably wouldn't receive any attention from players, so with the introduction of Tier 8, they see the vertical progression as complete. And that can, of course, change, never say never as time goes on, but there are no such plans at the moment of this writing. All right, well, that's it for the Tier 8 development log. Tell me what you think in the comments below. This is the Jaguar, and I'll see you on the high seas. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe if you like it.